I like to believe that those people that casted doubt and didn't want to listen to me then, I don't think it's going to make any difference next time. I remember I'm a fan of Alex Jones and those people that like to teach people to think for themselves and look for the manipulation coming. As the pandemic was hitting, I remember telling my friends and family what was coming next. This is what they're going to do, then they're going to do this, and they're going to do that. And they'd be like, I would never let that happen. I wouldn't abide by that. I'm like, but you will. And because they're going to give you a reason to. It's the reason that makes you accept the bullshit. You have to see through the reason. You got to see through it. And they'd be like, I won't fall for that. And they all did. Every single one of them. I shouldn't say every single. There's a couple friends I consider that didn't. Like just a very small handful. But for the most part, they did. And I almost lost a lot of friends over it. And I remember my best friends, a couple of them calling me. Actually, it was 3 of them calling me and giving me hell. Chris, smarten your fucking ass up and get in line and fucking, you're not better than everybody. You're not smarter than everybody. And I'm like, I'm not saying I am, but what I'm telling you is that you are being duped. That is the truth. And if you can't see it that way, I don't care. You do your thing, I'll do my thing, but don't stop loving me because I'm going to continue to be who I am, and this shouldn't surprise you one little bit, what I'm doing right now, And what ended up happening for a lot of them is cause I remember my one friend, Devin, he was so upset. He's like, my wife's upset with you. My kid's upset with you. My mother's upset with you. We don't know how to look at you anymore. We consider you a member of the family. And now we don't even know if we ever want you to come visit us again. And I'm like, that's fine if that's how you want to feel. I said, but why don't you try and learn what I know instead of judging me based on what you think you know? Why don't you try and see it from both sides? I know what you know. I've heard all those news stories. I'm fully steeped in the propaganda. Trust me, I know what you're thinking and what you think you believe. But why don't you try and read some other stuff and listen to some other people and read the documents coming from the government and coming from the health organizations they don't think you're going to read. Fact check this shit, And some people go oh, you can't believe anything you read. That could be all made up and fake. And I'm like, then why do you believe any of it then? Either side of it then? Because trust me, the people with the loud sirens that are on the TV that are going listen to me, they're the ones that have everything to gain from lying to you, right? The people that are being demonized have everything taken from them, but they're trying to tell you the truth. They have everything to lose from telling you the truth, right? That's Occam's razor, would tell you that the truth tellers always are being punished for it. So the people that are being punished for giving you information are probably closer to the truth than the people who are being rewarded for lying to you.
It's a difficult situation though, because on the one hand, you know what you know, and you're interpreting the world the way you interpret it. And that's your prerogative to do that, of course. But you have a certain intellectual and spiritual and emotional capacity, right? Now, however you quantify that, we can quantify it positively, negatively, sideways, any way you want, but you have this package that you take through the world, and the way that you receive information is different from the way that everybody else receives information because we're all unique. So if you are a person, not you, but if the people you're talking to, your friends and all of that, are not people like that, who have a different set of things, a different package that they carry through the world, then when the crisis hits, you are bound to see it differently from them. And one way that you might be able to deal with that is to accept that they're not going to get it and not fight it. Now, I don't know if that's the right thing to do in every case, but I think there's a certain element of jiu-jitsu where it's all to do with timing and all of that kind of stuff, And I often think by taking arms against a sea of troubles, by opposing the thing that you find, you actually compress it and make it worse. Instead of, there's another way to deal with it, which is to be accepting of that difference, even though it's painful, even though or you're in your heart, in your soul, that there's something else going on that those people aren't spotting. I mean, I'm talking like some kind of saint or some kind of paragon of virtue here. I did exactly the same things as you're doing. I argued, on social media, and argued with my parents and with my friends, about what was going on and who was telling the right story and all that kind of stuff. I did the same things, but on reflection, I think it might have been, how could you do it at the time though? It's all very well to say it now with hindsight, but I think for the next time, if it ever comes to it, and I'm still around for the next time, I think what I learned from the pandemic was those people are not going to change their minds because they have a conversation with me. They're seeing it on the telly, they're seeing it on social media, they're seeing it in the newspapers, they're seeing it from people that they respect. You know, the number of celebrities and politicians and people that they formerly trusted who were coming out and telling them that this is the way it was and this is what they should do, and, you know, be safe and wear your mask and do all this kind of stuff. Plus, you know, if you're out in the community, that's what you see all around you as well. Of course, you look like a complete maniac because you're saying the opposite thing to probably 90 or 95% of what they're hearing. And, you know, to these people, you do look like a raving lunatic at points, you know? That's the way they must be thinking. So I wonder if the best way to deal with it is to... But then how can you do that? I don't know how you would actually do that. How you would just say, okay then, fine, whatever. Doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, and beyond, and like, I that's kind of how I did deal with it. Like, that's how I kept my friends, I think, because, you know, I only argued with people that engaged me, who questioned my behavior, right? Because I was going with a to each their own attitude, right? Like, you do what you got to do, line up in any line you want to line up, take whatever you want to take.
Yeah, but that's the bit that disappeared, wasn't it? That was the bit that went away.
Yes, exactly. The people. So my friends, we've always loved each other for what we love about each other and accepted the differences for differences, and that's also the reason we love each other, right? And for the first time in my life, I felt like there was a witch hunt out for me being who I am rather than me being allowed to be who I am, right? And like there's a, you know, I don't like my album Dark Days. There's a couple songs in there where I'm singing about that stuff, like about how like there's one line in my own song, like, why is it any of your damn business? You know, like what it is I'm doing. And that's what bugged me, is because my friends were engaging with me because they felt they had to change me, rather than being like, because they always accepted me as like, Chris is a 9/11 was an inside job guy. All right, that's cool. He can believe what he wants to believe. He can listen to the alternative media. He can, you know, but when things are ramping up, I'm like going like, okay guys, this is the kind of stuff I've been talking about. You know, like, ready yourself for what you're gonna see a level of propaganda thrown at you that you've never experienced in your lifetime. So put your helmets on, you know, and just think a bit. And none of them did it. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And I was okay with it until they came knocking at my door going like, hey Chris, we're concerned about you. And it's like, why are you concerned about me being me? I'm not calling you and telling you to smarten up, you know? Like, the only friend of mine I even said anything to was my friend who had a 5-year-old child and wanted to get him vaccinated as soon as possible. And I was like, why? Show me any 5-year-old kids are dying from COVID. Why would you do that to your son? Well, he wants it. I'm like, that's not his own choice. He wants it because he's been told he wants it. He's got no idea what he wants.
That was one of the most despicable things that they did, was to cart out these poor bloody kids who were all, you know, getting an ice cream after having their vaccine and all that kind of stuff. And I felt physically sick at that. But, you know, there's a certain element where when that shit goes down, you've got to think about yourself and the ones that you're responsible for. You know, and you've got to turn your priorities that way. I mean, I got the vaccine, but the only reason I got the vaccine was that my daughter was old enough to make her own decisions, and she was getting the that was what she was doing. She was getting the vaccine. And if I didn't get it, then that would be a thing between us. I could see it coming. I could see that coming. And I just went, no, I don't want that. I'd rather take the vaccine and suffer whatever consequences that brings. And I did a bit of research into the vaccine that I was getting, and to be honest, I couldn't find any problems with it at that point. So I thought, well, okay, I'll take it. But that was really the only reason I did it. And it was I had to swallow my pride to do it. I had to say, okay, my relationship with my daughter is more important than this thing that I'm feeling, and I'll just swallow that, you know, and just let it happen.
And that was part of the process. That's what they wanted. They wanted that shame.
That's what they wanted us to do, of course. And I did it. But It's different when you're 60 from when you're 40.
I understand that too.
You know, I think that's the other thing, because 60 years old, who gives a fuck? You know, what does it matter? Nothing matters anymore. Nothing matters anymore when you're 60. It's like you've already won the lottery of life. You've got to 60. Good for you. Yeah, take a prize. You know, I know everybody wants to live forever these days, but you know, I'm not one of those. I'm just glad to be here now. You know, it's like this is all bonus time as far as I'm concerned, because I never thought I would get to this stage. But yeah, it's that whole time was just fucking awful. And I don't know what the next thing's going to be. I've just taken myself out of the media and out of social media and out of, the only thing I'm on is YouTube. I'm not on anything else. News comes to me through my family members who tell me things, you know, or I'm having a conversation. I was through in Glasgow seeing my niece and the other day, and they were telling me things that are going on, and I'm like, guys, I don't know anything about it. There's no point in talking to me about this. I know nothing about any of this now.
Which is the way to do it.
Yeah, it's the only way I can do it, because I'm sitting here, I don't have a job to do. You know, the only things I've got to do is edit this podcast, do your music, do my own music if I want to, and the rest of the time is mine. So if I was to fill that with the internet, with all of the news stories and all of the shit that's going on, that would be literally all I would do. So instead I put that to the side, and I have been reading books and, you know, sitting out the back in the sunshine and all that kind of stuff, you know. I'm trying desperately to convince myself that for me the war is over. It's not my war anymore. You know, it's Bill Burr was talking about this recently. He said, just let the youngsters do just their thing now. Just let them do it. Just fine. They'll figure it out. But it's not ours anymore. And I don't know what ages he was talking about, because he's in his 50s, so maybe he was talking about people younger than him. But definitely my daughter's like in a completely different zone from me. Completely different zone. She's like a modern young woman, you know, doing all the things that modern young women do. And, you know, she thinks I'm an old dinosaur, that's barely worth her time. And I can't say she's wrong, you know. For her world, I'm an anachronism, you know, because I am an old dad. I mean, you will be almost as old a dad as I am one day, if you're spared. But you know, I'm a dinosaur. I used to, when I was used to take her to nursery. There was a day out we had, and I had to go with her. The parents had to go, so I was going. And all the other kids were convinced I was her granddad, which Lily thought was hilarious, you know. But so that's the age. That's the kind of relationship, the kind of age difference between me and Lily is, well, it's 23 years or something like that. But yeah, it's. I'm just thinking. I just need to relax about things and try and get through the next couple of decades if I can. You know, crawling up the hill. Or scrabbling up the slope as I slide into obscurity. Do you know what I mean?
Well, and it's like, and I enjoy that process myself too. Like we've talked about this on one of the last podcasts too. I don't know if it was the last time we met or the time before, but it was just about how I've accepted that I am not part of anything important anymore other than to my family and my friends. Right, that's it. Like beyond that, it's. And I never was an agent of change or effect. Even other than writing an angry album during the pandemic there, a 4-song album, like my music is more about enlightenment. It's not about waking people up to anything other than like maybe thinking about the bigger things, you know? Like I wrote that most recent song I recorded, Whispers in the Maze, which I'm really glad you like, because every time I've gone back and worked on it, listened to it more, I like it more and more.
Oh, I loved it. I thought it was great.
There's a song I wrote before it that's in the same vein, called Forever Again, because I was singing more about the idea of forever in the concept I was writing about in my album Forever, and I wasn't intending on it, but it was just like the song sounded like it. The vocal melodies in my head sounded a lot like a vocal melody on Forever, so I was like, yeah, you know what? I'm just gonna kind of get into that, and the album I've been working on that's gonna probably come after Speak the Future is called Echoes in the Maze, right? And that's a lot of that concept involves those same kind of ideas, like this idea of forever, or this idea of, like, it's very grand, awesome concepts about, about like deep thought. And that's just where I am still. That's, like I'm much better suited as a philosopher and an artist than I am as an agent of change, And the thing I've always noticed about philosophy, like, philosophy is great. It could be a source of anxiety and depression for people who start to get into it because they realize it's almost fruitless and it's almost an act of futility. But all the greatest philosophy that I've learned throughout my life, I didn't appreciate it till I missed out on what it was trying to teach me. I mean, I can't say completely. Like, I feel like philosophy has given me a slight edge over the present moment.
You're going to have to unpack that one for me. You said you didn't say that bit again about you didn't get it or something. I didn't quite understand that one. So
I'm trying to think of a good example right now, but like, I was talking to my buddy Devin the other day, and this is going to sound like more like lowbrow philosophy, but it fits into some things, so him and we like to tinker. We like a lot of the things in my studio are homemade or have been modified by me, probably for the worse, not for the better, and he texted me, he goes, he's like, I want to know your opinion on something. He's like, cause he plays bass in a band right now. He's like, I kind of don't know if I should get like a nice bass combo, like a 400 watt bass amp combo, spend some good money, or should I use my pod and build like a nice bass speaker with a subwoofer and whatnot? And I said, well, what's your motivating factor to go one way or the other? And he's like, money. I think I could build a rig for a lot cheaper than it would cost me to buy a rig. And he went over all of his ideas to me. And I said, if you want my 2 cents, buy what you want. Don't make the thing, because you're going to spend a lot of money, a lot of time, ending up with a pile of shit that doesn't end up doing what you want it to do, when you should have just bought what you wanted right from the beginning. And you'll have what you want today. And I don't know if I upset him or not, but he got back to me a few minutes later and said, thank you, but it's the price. The price is the big problem. I said, why don't you buy used? Why don't you go on Facebook Marketplace and find what you want used? You probably end up spending less money than the project you're going to end up working on, and save all the time and the headaches in between. And he was like, that's a great idea. Thank you so much for not letting me go in opening up another forever project. Right? And his life, like mine, is full of all these unfinished projects that'll never get finished, that had great intentions to begin with, that just become too much, because you got so many other things you want to do and such little time to do them. Now that lesson, that wasn't me saying that because it was a good idea and I'm just smarter than him. It's because I've made those same mistakes.
Right, I see what you mean then. Yes, right.
So like, if someone had told me
the philosophy was there to begin with, but you had to experience almost the opposite in order to go, oh, that's what everybody was talking about. That sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just that's a lower thing. But like, one of the analogies I said to him is that I have a couple guitar amps I built by hand. And I said, they're not worth their weight in rocks, but the amount of time and money spent on them, they should be worth gold. But the best amps I have are the ones I bought.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But sometimes you have to go through these hoops. Every generation everybody in every generation has to learn the hard way, because we don't have that structure that we used to have, where the elders pass their wisdom on, because technology is going so fast, things are moving so fast that the elders no longer have the wisdom that's necessary. The new generation has to create it themselves. So you have to, So you're kind of at an age when you're probably still in touch with what's going on, and I feel as though my age and upwards, we're you're doing it very small. Okay, but there comes a point at which you realize, you're not going to change the world. You're not going to make any difference really in that way, the way that perhaps you thought you would when you were 20. That things don't bend around you the way that you've seen them bend around other people, But, nevertheless, you make the best of what you can. What I would say about philosophy is that philosophy exists in the gaps in knowledge, or the gaps in experience. And in particular with regard to, cosmological things or that kind of existential phenomenology, it exists in the gaps in science. It's where science looks to see what should we be looking at next. Oh, there's a problem there, right? Okay, we'll look for that, and then the philosophy disappears. So one day all philosophy will go away,